biker gang called the Outcasts rolls up to a meth lab run by their leader, Danny T. After inspecting the latest batch, Danny's lieutenant, Dalton, lines up a plane to move the product, despite Danny's hot-headed son, Jojo, insisting they should just drive it straight to Tucson.
Look, you're my kid, but we're doing it Dalton's way.
That's when DEA agents storm the building. The outcasts are cuffed out front while agents push deeper inside, straight into an erupting firefight. In the chaos, Dalton disarms one of the bikers, revealing himself as an undercover plant. Enraged, Danny trades shots with him, and he and Jojo empty their bullets into another agent as the entire lab turns into a war zone. Dalton spots a wounded agent and drags him outside, hauling him clear just seconds before the lab erupts in a thunderous explosion. Through the rolling smoke, a muscle car blasts out of the inferno with Danny and Jojo behind the wheel. Dalton jumps onto a bike and rockets after them. Up ahead, flashing lights seal off the highway, forcing the father-son duo to spin the car around and charge straight at Dalton. Thinking fast, Dalton drops the bike into a controlled slide and fires into the engine block, pumping round after round until the car detonates in a violent blast. Dalton drags Danny T out of the wreck and pins him to the asphalt, just as Jojo staggers out gun in hand, pupils blown wide from whatever he's taken. Sirens swell as more units flood the street, closing in fast. Dalton orders Jojo to drop the weapon, but he refuses, forcing Dalton to shoot him in the knee and drop him. Even then, Jojo, still high out of his mind, keeps reaching into his pockets, and in that split second of confusion, the officers unleash a wall of gunfire, cutting him down in front of his father as Dalton stands frozen, struggling to process the carnage.
You murdered my son, you motherfucker! Your kids are dead!
As Danny is hauled away in cuffs, Dalton, whose real name is Phil Broker, argues with his boss that Jojo was already down, but no one wants to hear it. Disillusioned, he walks away from the badge and disappears into a quiet rural town where the locals are about to underestimate the wrong man. 2 years later, Phil's daughter, Maddie, is playing alone on the school playground when her cap hits the ground. Teddy Klum, the school bully, picks it up, pretending to hand it back, only to snatch it off her head again. She asks for it twice, calm but firm, but he mocks her and shoves her to the floor. She gets back up, tells him she warned him, and when he lunges, she drops him with clean punches and kicks, leaving the bully on the ground with a bloody nose. Elsewhere, Phil is collecting wood with his friend Tito when he gets a call from Maddie's school. He rushes over and immediately spots Teddy in the principal's office with his parents loudly arguing with the sheriff.
Who's that? You know him?
I don't know.
Is that the father of that goddamn little girl? You the father?
Before Phil can even ask what's happening, the school psychologist, Susan Hatch, approaches and introduces herself. Moments later, Teddy and his parents, Cassie and Jimmy Klum, storm out of the office.
Look, there's blood all over his goddamn new shirt, Jimmy. That's why you gotta watch those sneaky little bitches on the playground. Hey, what, huh? Hey, what, you wanna say something? You wanna say something to me?
I would just let them leave the building.
When Phil asks why the sheriff is involved, Susan explains that Cassie threatened the principal during a previous incident with her son.
Their son is a special needs case.
She then leads Phil to the classroom where Maddie waits. When he gently asks what happened, Maddie explains that she asked Teddy twice, just like she was supposed to, before he shoved her and started everything. Phil owns up to teaching her how to defend herself. Susan sends Maddie into the hallway so she can speak with Phil alone. She asks why they moved to a remote location like Rayville, and Phil jokes it was because Maddie wanted a horse, before admitting the truth. Maddie's mother died, and he needed a quiet place to rebuild their lives after the loss hit Maddie especially hard.
Maddie's mother grew up around there, so it'll be a good place to start rebuilding.
Her file says that your wife died fairly recently. Last year?
Yeah. It's been hard on her. Her mom was sick for a while. Anything else?
After the meeting, Phil and Maddie head for their car, but Cassie spots them.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
And simmering with rage, pushes her husband to teach Phil a lesson. The sheriff tells Jimmy to get back in the truck, but Jimmy charges anyway.
You owe my son a goddamn apology.
Take it easy. Like the officer said, okay?
Jimmy, back in the truck, please.
Some sneaky little bitch cheap shots my son. Somebody owes us a goddamn apology.
Please, don't call her that. Can you get in the truck, please, honey?
Turn your back on me.
When the fool throws a cheap shot, Phil sees it coming and drops him instantly. The hit was so clean, his family tree felt the update. The sheriff helps Jimmy up, telling Phil he didn't need to put him down that hard, especially in front of his family. He then tries asking Phil about his job, but Phil deflects, saying the situation escalated and it won't happen again. Before Phil can leave, Cassie hits him with a cold, lingering stare, a silent promise this isn't over. Back in their truck, Cassie tears into Jimmy for being weak, insisting Phil embarrassed him. Jimmy mutters that he just lost
Lost
his
my
footing.
You lost your what, Jimmy? You lost your what?
I
You
lost my
your
balance.
What? You fucking lost your balance. He spun you and dropped you on your ass.
Mom, don't curse. Dad tripped just like me.
When Cassie asks how he plans to deal with the brokers, he has no answer. Frustrated, she says she'll get her brother involved, and Jimmy's face tightens with dread. Meanwhile, Cassie's brother Gator arrives at an abandoned shed where a group of teens are getting high. He storms in with a baseball bat, sends the underage girl home, then brutally beats one of the boys while the others watch in terror. He warns them to stay out of his woods or he'll kill them next time.
I don't want to have to kill a bunch of little kids. You will stand up and run in any direction you please. Just not this one. That clear? Yeah. All right, now get the fuck out of here! Go! Run! Run! Piece of kindergarten operation. Fucking kids suck.
Back at the broker's home, Phil jokes with Maddie and tells her he's proud she stood up for herself and set boundaries with the bully. Maddie asks if he was scared today, and he admits he was. When she wonders why he didn't look scared, he says he's had a lot of practice. She then brings up Miss Hatch, and Phil says she seems all right before telling Maddie goodnight. Elsewhere, Gator returns to his compound to find Cassie waiting. She tells him everything, how the brokers disrespected them, and how Phil took down Jimmy. She wants Gator to scare them, teach that family a lesson. After handing his sister some protein powder, Gator promises he'll handle the brokers personally. The next morning, Phil drives Maddie to school and takes a moment to speak with Susan Hatch. He asks for her help arranging Maddie's upcoming birthday party, and she agrees. Phil then admits he'd appreciate it if Susan could talk with Maddie sometime. She used to spend hours talking to her mom, and he knows she misses having a woman to talk to.
Maddie used to talk to her mum for hours. I think she'd like to talk to a woman more often.
Susan then warns him that around here, petty schoolyard drama can turn into an ER visit if tempers flare. So it might be best to smooth things over with the locals. Taking her advice, Phil heads straight to Jimmy Klum and asks what he needs to do to put everything behind them. Jimmy tells him to apologize to him, Cassie, and Teddy. Phil does. Jimmy accepts, and the tension eases for the moment. On his way back, Phil stops to refuel. Two of Gator's men pull up and start trouble immediately, one demanding the pump, the other shutting it off mid-fill. Phil calmly says he's not finished, but the thug just sneers.
Whatever you're thinking, rethink it.
Rethink it. He wants me to rethink it. You ain't turning that back on.
Meanwhile, the station manager senses trouble and disappears. Phil restarts the pump, and when the men interfere again, one grabs his hand. Phil reacts instantly, slamming the man's face into the glass meter. The second charges and gets dropped. They keep coming, but Phil dismantles them with cold, efficient precision, leaving both sprawled across the pavement.
Who put you up to this?
Nobody.
Word of the beating reaches Gator as he's cooking meth at his boathouse. Curious, he decides it's time to dig into Phil Broker's past. When Phil picks up Maddie from school, she immediately notices his bruised knuckles. He lies, but she clearly doesn't believe him. Moments later, the sheriff pulls Phil over, asking what he knows about the gas station fight. Phil simply asks if anyone's pressing charges. When the sheriff says no, Phil shuts down the conversation.
What are you, son? You WITSEC? Huh? You, ex-military, ex-law enforcement, ex-what?
Well, if we're ex-military, Sheriff, I'd probably refer to the answer as need-to-know information. And maybe some people don't need to know.
Here's what you need to know, Broken. You have got my attention, son.
Later, while Phil is on horseback with Maddie, Gator slips into the broker's home. He slashes Phil's tire, rummages through Maddie's bedroom, steals her teddy bear, then heads into the basement. There, he finds Phil's old DEA files, exactly what he was looking for. Down by the riverside, Maddie suddenly asks why they had to move to the middle of nowhere without even Wi-Fi. She then talks about her mom, the way she carried herself, the way she cared, and admits she sometimes worries about her dad now. Phil hugs her tight, telling her that with her by his side, he's already happy. When they return home, the horse is restless, sensing something off. Phil brushes it aside, until later, when Maddie mentions the family cat Luther is missing. He searches the woods and finds no cat, only the torn-off head of Maddie's rabbit doll. A cold dread settles in as Phil realizes someone has been inside their home. Meanwhile, Gator pieces together the truth. Phil Broker is the undercover DEA agent who destroyed Danny T's meth operation 2 years ago, the same raid where Danny's son Jojo was gunned down. Danny has blamed Phil ever since, vowing revenge. Knowing exactly what this information is worth, Gator calls his girlfriend Sheryl and tells her to come over in the morning. When Sheryl arrives, they catch up against her car before Gator lays it out. Jojo Turner, Danny T's son, died during the raid, and the agent responsible disappeared. That agent is Phil Broker. Danny would pay handsomely to find him. Gator wants Sheryl to deliver Phil's photo to the outcasts and secure him access to their distribution network, a move that could transform his entire operation. Sheryl hesitates at first, but agrees when Gator promises more money and a new life.
This means no more small-time jobs. No more sweating middlemen. All we do is cook and get paid.
Meanwhile, Phil, thinking Jimmy is behind both the gas station ambush and the break-in, storms over and warns him to stop whatever game he's playing and leave his daughter out of it. He even demands Luther back unharmed. Jimmy, confused and terrified, has no idea what Phil is talking about. Back home, Phil tries to restore some normalcy, buying Maddie a new doll to replace her missing bunny and asking if she wants a 10th birthday party with her classmates. She agrees, as long as Miss Hatch comes. Meanwhile, Sheryl travels to the city and hands Phil's information to Danny T's lawyer, who delivers it straight to Danny in prison. The moment Danny sees Phil's face, he orders his men to hunt him down and kill him. The next day, Phil bumps into Teddy and Cassie in town. With Maddie's party coming up, he takes the chance to extend an olive branch. He and Maddie invite Teddy, and Phil even offers to replace the boy's blood-stained shirt from the fight. Later, while working with Tito, Phil learns rumors about his clash with Jimmy have already spread. He confides that someone broke into his home and asks if Jimmy might be behind it.
Fuck no, Jimmy Klum's a bitch. Listen, I know everybody around here, and Jimmy Klum's bitch ass ain't breaking into shit.
Tito says it's more likely Cassie's brother, Gator, who hides his meth operation behind his boat repair shop. The sheriff knows, but turns a blind eye. Tito then points Phil to a cafe where Gator usually hangs out, warning him to tread carefully.
Now, he don't look like much of nothing, but you remember what I told you. He ain't true.
At Maddie's birthday party, music and laughter fill the yard. Phil trades a few lingering, hopeful looks with Miss Hatch and even ends the day with a quiet nod from Cassie, a sign that, at least on the surface, the feud is cooling off. Meanwhile, Sheryl meets with a biker named Cyrus. Before going in, she calls Gator, telling him she used to know Cyrus and that he's a stone-cold killer. But Gator brushes it off, telling her to quit worrying and close the deal. During the meeting, once Sheryl confirms she knows where the narc is, Cyrus asks what she wants in exchange. When she says it's nothing, just a gift for Danny, Cyrus scoffs and mocks her. She pushes back, saying she spent years assembling the right gear, the perfect partner, the perfect hideout. All they need now is distribution. But Cyrus just laughs in her face.
Well, you got me fucking fooled, Sheryl. Because underneath this beautiful tweaker body, you're a genius.
Then, with a single shift in tone, he threatens to kill her if she doesn't cough up the location right now. Later that night, Gator stops by Cassie's place and warns her to stay away from Phil. The talk quickly collapses when Cassie demands more protein powder. Gator refuses, telling her to clean herself up. Inside, Teddy overhears everything, realizing how deep his mother's addiction runs. After Cassie storms off, her husband steps in and begs Gator to stop feeding her habit. But Gator, smug and cruel, tells him to take better care of her. Maybe then she wouldn't need the drugs. That same night, Phil gets a call from his old DEA boss with intel on Gator Bodine. Gator has a handful of arrests, but no convictions. More importantly, the woman he's been seen with, Sheryl Marie Mott, is an ex-biker groupie from Shreveport who twice got caught smuggling dope into Angola, once to Danny T himself. And now, she's suddenly living in Rayville. The boss says he'll send Phil a picture of her first thing in the morning. At dawn, Phil heads to the cafe Tito mentioned. After Tito discreetly points out the table, Phil walks over to Gator, who's sitting with Sheryl. Calmly, he introduces himself. Gator sneers, saying Phil must be the crook who taught his daughter how to fight.
Now, what kind of parent would teach a kid to do something like that?
Phil keeps his cool, insisting he doesn't want trouble, especially not involving Maddie. When Gator pretends not to know what he's talking about, Phil lays it out. The slashed tires, the trashed doll, the missing cat, but Gator denies everything with a smile. Phil leans in and tells him that anyone who trespasses on his property will leave in a body bag.
You're on notice, Bodine.
Yeah, you should tell your little girl to be brave. She's got nothing to worry about with such a tough daddy around.
Nice meeting you. Finish your breakfast.
Outside, he receives the photo from the DEA and realizes the woman with Gator was Sheryl. Determined to end this, he heads straight to Gator's boat repair shop, a drug front in plain sight. He spots meth equipment and packaged product hidden everywhere. Drawing on his DEA experience, he rigs a simple electronic trap that will ignite the moment someone flips the lights. On the way out, Phil spots Maddie's missing cat, but before he can grab it, one of Gator's men sticks a gun in his back. In a split second, Phil disarms him, but the cat bolts. Chasing after it, Phil runs straight into an ambush. The same thugs from the gas station. They tie him up, beat him down, and torture him.
How you like that, huh? Everybody had you figured for a cop, broker. You walk like a cop. You fight like a cop. You even smell like a fucking cop.
The moment they taunt him about Maddie and threaten to hurt her, Phil unlocks Ultra Instinct, Bluetooth, and 5G instantly, tearing through the goons with brutal precision. By the time he's done, none of them are standing.
When I get home, I am gonna tell Miguel a bedtime story. Here's how it ends.
You'd think after the gas station incident these dudes would retire, but nope, they just had to pull up for round 2 like it's a loyalty program. And hey, if you're still here, drop a comment. I want to know who you think got folded the hardest. Phil escapes with the cat and patches himself up as best he can. Meanwhile, the outcast biker army is already closing in on the town. Back home, Maddie throws a fit when she realizes they're relocating again. Phil lies, saying he's needed back in the city for a new case. But Maddie doesn't buy it. She asks about school, and Phil just says they'll send her report card in the morning. Across town, the outcasts arrive at Gator's hideout with Sheryl, demanding Phil's location. Sheryl gives it up, and Gator offers to draw them a map, but Cyrus refuses. They're not driving. They're taking the boats. As the crew prepares to leave, Gator announces he's not going with them. Once this blows up, he needs a rock-solid alibi in a crowded public place. When Sheryl asks what they're planning to do about the kid, Cyrus says they can't leave any witnesses. Gator agrees without hesitation. Cyrus drags Sheryl along, saying he'll bring her back later, much to Gator's irritation. Engines roar, boats push off, and the outcasts tear across the water, heading straight for Phil Broker's home. At the same time, Tito arrives to take the horses while Phil prepares to leave town. He tells Phil he can watch them, but only for a week. After that, they'll need to be moved. Meanwhile, across town, Gator works to keep his alibi airtight, casually offering the sheriff whiskey and bragging about a big sale. Back at the river, Cyrus' crew reaches the dock with Sheryl in tow. Cyrus tells her to stay put and call her boyfriend, while the rest of the gang moves toward Phil's house. As they cross the property, a horse lets out a sharp neigh. Cyrus sends one man to check it out. Inside the stable, Tito ambushes the thug and a violent fight erupts. The biker overpowers Tito at first, knocking him to the ground. But as the thug reaches for his gun, Tito lunges and buries a garden fork into his torso. Inside the house, Phil is still packing when he hears Tito's horn, a distinct series of warning honks. Phil's eyes sharpen. The gang hears it too, and a gunshot cracks through the air. That's when Phil kills the lights. As the house drops into darkness, he moves fast, ushering Maddie into the basement. He gives her his phone and tells her to call 911. Tell them a man is in the house with a gun, and to stay hidden until he comes back. Maddie nods through trembling breaths. Phil grabs his weapons, takes a breath, and positions himself in the shadows as the bikers close in. Two bikers push through the front door. The moment it cracks open, Phil fires, dropping one instantly. Then a violent firefight erupts across the porch. In the chaos, another thug slips into the basement corridor and spots Maddie. She bolts out the back and sprints into the woods, the biker chasing her down. Phil clips the man's leg with a shot and uses his body as a shield to push deeper into the hall, taking out another intruder. Outside, the gang leader unleashes a machine gun burst that forces Phil into cover, pinning him down and cutting off any chance to reach Maddie. After a tense exchange of gunfire, Phil finally lands a clean shot across the leader's face, dropping him. Without hesitation, Phil breaks from cover and charges into the woods. Just as Maddie's pursuer raises his gun, Phil barrels into him and drops him before he can fire. But the relief doesn't last. Cyrus ambushes Phil and the two crash into a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Phil yells for Maddie to run as they trade savage blows, grappling and slamming each other into the dirt. In the struggle, Phil hears Maddie screaming near the shore. Fueled by panic, he hurls the thug to the ground, only for the man to pull a knife. In a vicious reversal, Phil disarms him, snaps his arm, and drives the blade into him again and again, until the fight is finished. Phil then sprints toward Maddie's screams, but his heart drops. He arrives just in time to see Sheryl speeding off in a boat with Maddie trapped under. Scared, Maddie dials 911 while Phil bolts toward the house. arriving just as the cops pull in.
They hit the house. My girl. By boat, headed south towards Boot.
What do you mean hit the house?
An ambush, 5-6 men all armed. Try to kill us.
That's when Tito arrives in his car, still alive despite his wound, and Phil calls for paramedics. Moments later, Maddie's call comes through on dispatch, and Phil grabs the radio to talk to her. When he asks who took her, Maddie says it was a lady with black hair. Phil tells her that when they take her out, she should hide the phone and look for any landmark to pinpoint her location. Then the call cuts out. With his DEA instincts kicking in, Phil steps in fast, directing the sheriff's next moves. Meanwhile, Gator races to his boathouse, calling Sheryl and ordering her to meet him there. When the boat stops, Maddie whispers details of her surroundings, and Phil instantly recognizes the location, Gator's hideout. He steals a cop car and tears off toward her. Inside the hideout, Gator explodes at Sheryl for bringing Maddie there. Furious that his operation is exposed, he pulls a gun, ready to silence Maddie for good. But before he can act, Cassie and Jimmy storm in, demanding answers about the shootings and Maddie's disappearance. Gator denies everything.
Word is people are dead and a child missing.
No shit. Well, no shooting going on here, so maybe y'all better go home. Hey, Jimmy, you gonna take her home?
In the tense standoff, Sheryl tries to sneak Maddie out, but Cassie hears her voice and switches on the lights. That's when Phil's earlier trap detonates. The lab erupts in a massive explosion, with fire and debris ripping through the hideout. Amid the chaos, Cassie shields Maddie, but Gator turns his rage on his sister and shoots her in the stomach before dragging Maddie away. As Gator flees with Maddie, Phil arrives just in time to give chase. A high-speed pursuit tears across the highway. Gator blows past roadblocks, keeping Maddie trapped. Phil pushes his car to the limit, but it overturns in a violent crash. Sensing victory, Gator stops and approaches the wreck, gun raised. Just as he's about to fire, Maddie cries out for her dad. The split-second distraction is all Phil needs. He launches forward, disarms Gator, and unleashes a brutal beatdown. He raises the gun for the kill, but then sees Maddie watching. Breathing hard, he lowers the weapon and chooses not to execute the thug.
She just saved your life.
Phil then pulls Maddie into a fierce embrace as cops swarm in and arrest Gator. With the nightmare ending, paramedics rush Cassie away, alive despite her brother's bullet, and officers haul Sheryl off in cuffs. Sometime later, Danny T steps into the prison visitor room. Across the glass sits Phil, promising that when Danny gets out, he'll be waiting. With that chilling warning, Phil rises and walks away. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Drop your favorite movies below, and I'll see which ones to cover next. Thanks for watching.